The evening hum inside Harborline Grill in Seattle felt like a warm blanket clinking glasses, soft jazz playing somewhere near the bar, conversations blending into a steady murmur until the moment everything cracked apart like thin ice under too much weight. And it all began when Evelyn Park, a 26-year-old waitress working her third double shift in a row, felt the hand of a man who believed the world belonged to him clamp down on her wrist with the cold precision of someone used to dominating rooms, people, and situations. Evelyn had moved to Seattle 2 years earlier after her mother's medical bills wiped out the savings her family had built from running a small flower shop in Sacramento. She worked every shift she could, often leaving the restaurant past midnight and spending her mornings in online classes for her social work degree, hoping someday she could help families like hers, families shoved into silence by circumstances too heavy to carry. Tonight was supposed to be manageable. The diners were friendly, the tips were decent, and the holiday season lights outside the windows glittered softly against the wet streets. And then there was Anthony Markham. Anthony was the kind of man whose reputation filled a room even before he arrived. A corporate lawyer with a history of getting whatever he demanded. He dressed in suits that cost more than Evelyn's monthly rent and carried himself with a confidence that felt less like charisma and more like entitlement carved into human form. He had spent an hour sending back dishes that were perfectly fine, asking Evelyn to bring him new cutlery 3 separate times, and speaking to her as though she were an inconvenience rather than a human being. When he complained for the 4th time that his drink didn't taste expensive enough, and Evelyn gently informed him that the top-shelf bourbon he demanded cost extra, the mask cracked. Anthony's hand shot out, gripping her wrist so tightly that she felt her pulse slam against her skin. He leaned forward, the sharp scent of whiskey brushing her cheek as he hissed, "Don't lecture me. You bring what I ask. That's your job." Not thinking, his voice snapped through the restaurant so suddenly that the nearest table fell silent, and Evelyn's breath hitched not from pain, but from the humiliation burning through her chest. She tried to pull back, but his fingers locked around her like iron. "Sir, please let go," she managed, her voice trembling despite every effort to sound steady. And then came the moment nobody expected. At a small booth near the back, where he'd been quietly reading a worn paperback novel and sipping a single cup of tea, a man whom most people overlook slowly rose from his seat. His name was Daniel Reyes. Evelyn knew him only as the soft-spoken, Thursday regular who always asked how her day was going and tipped with sincerity rather than spectacle. He couldn't have been more than 36, with an unassuming posture and clothes that suggested he cared more for comfort than appearances, dark jeans, a gray sweater, a messenger bag worn at the edges. But there was something about him, something in the way he moved, deliberate and steady, that made the air shift. As Daniel walked toward Anthony's table, the entire restaurant seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Evelyn froze, Anthony's grip tightening as he turned to glare at the approaching stranger. "Mind your own business," Anthony growled, but Daniel didn't stop. "Let her go," he said, his voice soft enough to be gentle, yet strong enough to settle over every person listening. Anthony barked an incredulous laugh. "Excuse me?" "Do you know who Daniel interrupted with the same quiet firmness. "Let go, or you'll regret holding on." His words weren't loud, but they struck with a certainty that froze even the restaurant manager several steps away with his phone halfway raised to call security. Anthony scoffed, preparing to unleash another tirade, but then something happened so fast most diners would later describe it differently. Daniel's hand moved with practiced precision, pressing a single pressure point just above Anthony's thumb. The lawyer gasped, his fingers springing open involuntarily as Evelyn jerked her hand back, rubbing at the reddened skin. Daniel immediately stepped sideways, placing his body between her and Anthony like a protective shield. "Are you injured?" he asked Evelyn without turning his head. "No," she whispered, shaken but recovering. "I'm okay." Anthony shot to his feet, face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You're finished," he snarled at Daniel. "I will bury you. I'll have this place shut down." Daniel finally looked at him fully, and the expression on his face wasn't anger or threat. It was sorrow, deep old sorrow. "You won't," Daniel said quietly. And do you know why? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple black wallet, removing an access card and placing it gently on the table. Across the top in clean silver lettering were the words Reyes Hospitality Group Executive Director. Evelyn's eyes widened. So did the managers. The restaurant didn't just serve good food. It was one of the most respected establishments in the district, owned by a company known for building workplace-safe environments, second-chance programs, and community partnerships. Daniel Reyes wasn't a quiet regular. He was the new majority owner. I don't tolerate abuse in any building with my name on it, Daniel continued, voice steady. Not from customers, not from employees, not from anyone. You are leaving now? You will not return, Anthony sputtered, searching for leverage that no longer existed. But as the room watched silently, he realized the truth: no amount of money or threats would save him here. With a final glare, he stormed out, the slam of the door echoing like a closing chapter. Once he was gone, Daniel turned to Evelyn fully for the first time. His expression softened, grief flickering behind calm eyes. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You didn't deserve any of that. Evelyn swallowed, tears gathering as relief battled exhaustion. Why did you help me? She whispered. You could have just called security, Daniel exhaled slowly, and in that breath lived years of stories he wasn't ready to tell. Because someone once helped me when I thought I didn't matter, he said. And I promised myself I would never ignore someone in pain again, not if I had the power to step in. The restaurant seemed to come back to life around them, conversations cautious at first, then gradually returning to warmth. Daniel looked at the manager. Give her the rest of the night off, he said. Paid. Then he turned back to Evelyn. And come see me tomorrow. I think we need to talk about your future here. Opportunities, support, whatever you need. That night became legend among Seattle's service community. People shared it, debated it, celebrated it, and long after the shock faded, the story remained a reminder of what courage looks like when it doesn't need an audience. 3 months later, under Daniel's mentorship, Evelyn earned a full scholarship from the company's newly expanded education fund, an initiative inspired by her perseverance. Within 5 years, Evelyn would graduate as a licensed social worker, eventually opening a nonprofit center supporting restaurant employees facing harassment, burnout, and financial hardship. And every time someone asked her why she chose this path, she would think back to that night, the night someone stood up, not because it was easy, but because kindness demanded it. Because true strength is quiet. Because real power protects, not harms. And because one stranger's courage can change the direction of another person's entire life.